Good morning, dear colleagues. Because we have our commissioner connected and there is a huge interest for this debate, we have a long list of colleagues for interventions, and of course, also please bear in mind that at 5 minutes before 12 we have to finish because Commissioner has a very important meeting, but we have 1 hour and a half at our disposal. I will kindly welcome you in the second part of this morning committee meeting. As I said, item 12 on our agenda is a very important exchange of views with Commissioner Kadri Simson, our Commissioner for Energy, and the exchange of views is on the energy aspects related, on energy-related aspects of the Russia-Ukrainian crisis. I would like to welcome Mrs. Kadri Simson and thank her for being with us today to hold this exchange of views in the context of Russian invasion and Russian war against Ukraine. It is imperative that we as EU lawmakers put all the tools at our disposal to mitigate the negative effects of the crisis on our energy markets, our industries, and the overall economy. We are well aware that we could do a lot via Fit for 55 package and our Green Deal vision on longer term, including the gas package, to increase our energy independence by boosting renewables and energy efficiency, and also diversifying our sources for gas, at least for the transition period. But we are also we have also current tools at our disposal, such as the security of gas supply regulation, our market mechanisms to control the certification of third country operators within the EU. I'm afraid that this will be one of a few meetings under the difficult circumstances because it looks like this situation will last and the effects will be quite significant. That's why I'm grateful to our Commissioner for always making herself available to discuss these matters with us in a situation where already we experienced and still experience an increase of energy prices in most of European countries, some of the countries being very much affected. So this situation comes on top. And of course, beside the tragedy and the loss of human lives and all the tragedies and the difficult situation that we experience from the point of view of humanitarian and of course everything that we see now, we have also to look to the economic aspects and the energy impact of this crisis and this war. By saying that, I kindly invite Commissioner Kadri Simson to address us, and then of course we start with the coordinators, first round, and then the second round. We have an important number of colleagues waiting to take the floor. Dear Commissioner, thank you so much. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Christian, and I very much appreciate that you as ITRE chair and your committee, that you were giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. And I hope that next week at plenary we can discuss also energy prices. We are facing a full-scale war on the European continent, a war against a partner of the Union, a country which has gone a long way in implementing reforms, not least in the energy sector, a country that deserves all the support of the Union against an unprovoked and unjustifiable violent aggression. The Commission is actively working on ensuring that Ukraine can maintain stable electricity and gas supplies despite the war. Yesterday, I sent a letter to all energy ministers in the EU explaining how we will coordinate urgent supplies to Ukraine in the energy sector. And during the Energy Council on Monday, many member states pleaded for immediate assistance to Ukraine as well. And I am in constant contact with Minister Galushenko. We are regularly updated on the situation on the ground. And despite some regions being cut off from electricity and gas. Both the power and gas infrastructure continue to operate steadily in Ukraine. Over the last years, we have already done a lot to contribute to the energy security of Ukraine through reverse flow of gas, including from Hungary and Slovakia this winter, with discussions ongoing for possible extension to the next heating season. This is now of a crucial importance. And another crucial issue concerns the synchronization of the Ukrainian power grid with that of the continental Europe, a strategic project for Ukraine's energy diversification and autonomy from Russia. And exactly a week ago, at midnight, Ukraine has decoupled its electricity grid from the Russian electricity grid for an isolation mode test. And this was already planned a long time ago and dramatically has coincided with the military aggression. The test went well and reasonably proved that the Ukrainian system can successfully operate on its own. And in the current situation, Ukraine has decided not to link their grid back to Russia. So in my discussion with Minister Galushenko on Sunday last week, I expressed my full political support to early synchronization of the Ukrainian and Moldovan grid with continental Europe. It was supposed to happen under the normal circumstances next year. And meanwhile, NSOE has set up a task force to assess the risks and identify the necessary measures. And based on that, they will ensure emergency synchronization with Ukraine. So I believe this decision would be a tangible sign of Europe's solidarity and a reason for hope for Ukraine. And finally, I'm also following very closely the nuclear safety situation together with NSREG. Of course, this unfolding crisis will impact European energy markets and security of supply. The High Representative and the Commission proposed a strong response, including a robust set of economic sanctions, and we coordinated them closely with our partners, United States, UK and other allies. And furthermore, the Commission proposed removing a number of Russian banks from the SWIFT system and paralyzing the Russian central bank, which has shown strong effects already. As in 2014, EU sanctions do not target directly trade in energy commodities, but include a ban on exports on specific refining technologies. And this will make it harder and more costly for Russia to upgrade its oil refineries. And these technologies are built in Europe, and they cannot be easily replaced globally by other suppliers. So we will see that over time there will be a depletion of revenues from the refined oil that in 2019 generated 24 billion euros of revenues for Russia. And against this background, we know that our own markets, energy markets, remain very tight. Well, our preparedness relies on our ability to substantially and effectively diversify supplies from our current main supplier to fill also our gas storage capacities before the next winter begins. Well, turning to the gas market, LNG would need to play a key role to replace the missing pipeline gas. Therefore, the Commission has been in touch with both alternative pipeline and LNG suppliers to explore all avenues for additional supplies. And there is a clear willingness to help from our trusted partners. So finally, beyond the risk of security of supply shock, we must also address the risk of a price shock. As you know, the Commission is working on measures that could be taken in the short and mid-term. We will present this in a form of a communication next week. And now I will listen attentively today your expectations and interests. Let me just add that the Commission stands ready to propose extraordinary measures in case of an escalation of prices that threatens our social and economic resilience. And in this context, I would like to urge the Parliament also to accelerate the examination of the December proposal. Because on 15th of December last year, the Commission proposed an amendment to the gas security of supply regulation to reinforce the security of gas supply framework, with targeted measures to better coordinate storage and enable joint procurement of strategic stocks, as well as strengthening solidarity between member states. And in the current context, it is therefore crucial that the December package is adopted as soon as possible. I want to conclude with one political remark on the meaning of this energy crisis for Europe. We are faced with multiple challenges which seem to point to the same direction: security of supply, affordable energy, and climate change. Our best option to address them is delivering on resilience, diversification, and energy transition. And it has become painfully clear that we cannot afford to leave to any third country the power to destabilize our energy markets or influence our energy choices. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Commissioner. We go now to the dialogue with the ITRE committee members, and the first round is the round of interventions of coordinators. Time allocated is 2 minutes for each intervention. I will start with the EPP and the coordinator of EPP, Mr. Christian Ehler.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And in these times, it's not the Parliament roasting a Commissioner. I think it's a matter of solidarity that we jointly consider what we can do in terms of that we are getting in an economic war. I mean, that we should understand that it's not just from our side imposing sanctions on Russia. There will be response. And I think it's very realistic that we are not talking about reducing our consumption of gas from Russia. It's very realistic that Russia is going to shut down the gas supply for Europe. So you had been referring to, let's say, in perspective to a short-term notice on what we could do. My question is more precisely, I mean, what is your knowledge on our capacity to fill up the gas reserve till September or October? I think that's of utmost importance because the difficulties will occur in the next winter. So what is the potential? Secondly, my question would be in terms of the gas package, let's call it that way. What we see in terms of LNG gas, the problem is that the European market in terms of infrastructure is not completed. The biggest potential to get LNG on land is in Spain, but we don't have connections from Spain to the rest of Europe. So that would directly affect in perspective, in a midterm perspective, the gas package. A question related to that, although not so pressing, in the gas package there's also nothing mentioned about the infrastructure for hydrogen, because the idea is to refurbish gas infrastructure for hydrogen. And I think there's a growing worry in some member states that the IPSA, so basically this kind of giving leverage to some member states and private investors for electrolyzers in some member states won't be an answer for all the other member states, because if they're not connected to a refurbished gas or hydrogen infrastructure, they won't have it in due time. So my questions are, as I said, what is really in short notice something you would believe it's helpful in terms of building up a gas reserve? And secondly, what are the implications for the gas package? And thirdly, what do you envisage in terms of we really want to build up hydrogen as to substitute carbon in combustion processes? Wouldn't we need something like a hydrogen backbone instead? This spotted kind of big member states financed IPSAs building up regionally hydrogen production, but not being an answer for the rest of the member states. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Dan Nica, the coordinator of SND.
Mulțumesc, domnule președinte. Doamna comisar, bună ziua. Îmi pare rău să vă spun, dar nu cred că această invazie a Rusiei în Ucraina este cea care ne-a arătat vulnerabilitatea sistemului energetic european. Eu cred că acest lucru era clar. Era clar, dar alegerea a fost să închideți ochii. Eu aș vrea să mă refer la două lucruri. piața de energie a Uniunii Europene și eu cred că ne aflăm în fața unui exemplu clasic de eșec de piață. Market failure, în caz de traducerea lui foarte corectă. Și spun acest lucru, doamna comisar, pentru că în momentul în care în România factura la energie este mai mare decât pensia minimă, este eșec de piață. Când în România, situația generală și în foarte multe alte state membre, este mai mare decât salariul minim pe economie, este eșec de piață. Când această creștere a prețurilor se regăsește în același timp și ne cereți ca să și explicăm aceste lucruri, că e o piață de energie funcțională, în fața unor profituri care au fost declarate de către cei care produc energia electrică sau producători de gaze de 5 ori, de 10 ori mai mare decât prețul de cost, este eșec de piață, doamna comisar. Și noi așteptăm cu toții să vedem că în luna aprilie va veni Acer și sper ca răspunsul lui Acer să nu fie că doar cetățenii europeni sau firmele care au fost nevoite să-și închidă activitatea sau să concedieze oameni au avut ghinion. Al doilea lucru, despre securitate energetică. Acum 5 ani de zile să vorbim despre energie era blasfemie. Acum se vede cât de perversă a fost această politică care ne-a împins ca să consumăm gaz din Rusia, ca acum să spunem că avem o dependență prea mare de gazul pe care îl produce Rusia. Care sunt elementele concrete de reglementare a pieței, astfel încât piața să fie normală și toată lumea să poată să știe că prețul este bazat pe o rată a profitului normală, 10, 15%, nu 500%, nu 1000%, care sunt capacitățile pe care le veți pune în funcțiune și mai ales interconectările pe care trebuie făcute cu aceste capacități ca să avem gaz, energie electrică, doamna comisar, pentru că este iarnă. A trebuit să vedem la toate televiziunile de știri situația de la punctele de trecere a frontierei din România, să vedem pe ucrainenii care încearcă să scape cu viață din acel război pustiitor, ca să vedeți că este iarnă și este frig în Europa. Acestea sunt lucrurile pe care vi le cer, doamna comisar, pentru că măsurile concrete și mai ales termenele concrete sunt cele lucruri pe care le așteptăm cu toții și de la dumneavoastră și cei de la Acer, pe care așteptăm cu mare nerăbdare să vedem cu ce minuni o să mai vină în luna aprilie. Mulțumesc.
Mulțumesc, domnule Nica. The next speaker is the coordinator of the Renew Group, Mrs. Labaiova.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for being with us today and discussing such an important topic. I will be short because I think that I don't want to lecture here. I just want to have some concrete answers to my questions. I might repeat what was already said, and you will hear it repeated many times today because I think we have all the same worries, the same questions. You know the position of the Parliament. First, I would like to ask how solid are the impact assessments related to Green Deal legislation? Will they hold under the call to ban import of Russian oil and gas? Secondly, what is the possible timeline to become fully independent on Russian oil and gas, and what can be the progress milestones? And you should already know them now after 1 week. Does the Commission has any information from member states on how their energy concepts will be affected by that? Last but not least, what will be the budgetary impact on industry, SMEs, buildings and households? Will the current situation be reflected in the ongoing state aid revision? I would really need to hear more answers than questions today, and I hope we will have some of them after this meeting. And I really want to give time to the Commissioner. I think that's important, and we need to listen to Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. The coordinator of the Greens, Mr. Ninisto.
Thank you, Chair. I come from a country that has a long border with Russia, so does the Commissioner. The difference is that Finland is the only EU country that is also not part of a military alliance. So from that background, I really want the whole committee to realize also that energy is part of a bigger picture here with protecting national sovereignty. So if EU is not very clear on protecting the national sovereignty of Ukraine and also the national sovereignty of its own members, we will have an erosion of geopolitical stability in Europe that will affect us for a really long time. So we need to look at also energy independence from Russia from a totally different context than just a few weeks ago or a few years ago. And also, if you take into account the economic sanctions, the freeze of the Russian central bank monetary funds, and also the SWIFT exclusion, those tools are effective only if you also limit the energy purchases, because energy purchases are the only way for Russian economy to get euro-dollar system income currently. So if we try to minimize energy purchases from Russia, the economic sanctions work better. So all oil, gas, and other Russian energy purchases that we can avoid will make the sanctions more effective and hopefully stop Putin's war as soon as possible and protect Ukraine here. And that's why I think we need to look at this from a totally different perspective that we usually do, because I think our citizens are also prepared for new solutions in making sure that the energy reliability and price stability in Europe is achieved in a way where we also try to exclude the purchases from Russia. So if we look at this from the short perspective and long perspective, I think it's time for a new EU energy strategy that bets heavily on a sustainable and socially fair future. In other words, a strategy that invests heavily on highly energy efficient, 100% renewably based economy, European Renewable Energy Union, because that is energy independent. We know that all the other sources, the resources come from outside Europe, and also any LNG or diversification of sources, if we would start to build new investments in fossil fuels, it takes time. So in the short term also, diversification of sources is important, but investments should go heavily in renewables and energy efficiency and energy savings. Any investment in heat pumps we do now will help next winter because we will need less gas. And also I think in the short term it's important to look at our gas storages. They are 30% full, and we should manage this winter even with a cut-off of Russian gas supplies. And also we should look at extending those storages for the next year.
Thank you so much. The coordinator of ID Group, Mr. Borchia.
Sì, grazie Presidente, buongiorno colleghi, benvenuta Commissaria, grazie per la presenza. Ieri i prezzi del petrolio hanno raggiunto un picco di $113 al barile, stamattina il pieno servito in Italia costa addirittura €2,11 al litro. Stamattina alla borsa di Amsterdam il TTF ha visto il prezzo del gas toccare i €200 per megawattora, quindi sono prezzi altissimi, volatili, ma soprattutto la prima considerazione che vorrei tutti condividessero è che non possiamo più continuare a chiedere miracoli ai nostri imprenditori, a chi lavora nell'autotrasporto, agli agricoltori, alle famiglie in difficoltà per pagare le bollette. A livello di Unione penso sia necessario riconoscerlo, ma anche a livello di Stati membri, come ad esempio l'Italia, negli ultimi anni non è stato fatto nulla per evitare di entrare nel vicolo cieco della dipendenza energetica. Per esempio io, commissaria, solo pochi mesi fa avevo chiesto che venisse valutato di inserire il raddoppio della TAP tra i progetti di interesse comune, una proposta restituita al mittente. Quindi è evidente che nulla accade per caso, una classe dirigente seria, di livello, non nasconde gli errori ma li studia, li analizza. 30 anni fa, ad esempio, in Italia potevamo estrarre 30 miliardi di metri cubi di gas su un fabbisogno di 70, ora siamo arrivati a 4,5. Quindi fondamentalmente a tutti i problemi esiste una soluzione. L'esperienza delle crisi petrolifere degli anni 70 ci insegna che è possibile affrancarsi dall'energia usata come strumento di pressione politica nel giro di una decina d'anni. Era successo con l'OPEC all'epoca. Sono misure che richiedono tempi non brevi, per cui alcune soluzioni sono già state suggerite in passato. Bisogna massimizzare l'utilizzo degli impianti e delle infrastrutture energetiche esistenti. La Germania, ad esempio, dovrebbe rinunciare a chiudere entro fine anno le ultime 3 centrali nucleari ancora in esercizio, mentre dovremmo rafforzare la connessione dei gasdotti dalla Spagna al resto d'Europa. Ci sono gigantesche riserve nel Mediterraneo orientale che hanno grosse potenzialità, e poi si dovranno ancora sfruttare le riserve di metano di cui l'Europa dispone. Concludo, Presidente. Noi dobbiamo stare attenti affinché il Green Deal europeo venga ripensato, inizi a valutare meglio gli interessi europei per evitare di passare dalla dipendenza dal gas russo alla dipendenza dalla Cina per quanto riguarda le rinnovabili, perché se non c'è sicurezza energetica, se manca la sovranità, non ci possono essere né pace né libertà. Grazie.
Grazie molto. On behalf of ECR, Mrs. Beata Sidlo.
Dziękuję Panie Przewodniczący. Szanowni Państwo, wydaje mi się, że musimy wyciągnąć wszyscy z tego, co dzieje się w tej chwili na Ukrainie, bardzo szybko wnioski. Po pierwsze, należy rozpocząć szybką debatę nad zmianą strategii energetycznej Unii Europejskiej. Musimy zastanowić się, czy to, co do tej pory było zaproponowane, spełnia bezpieczeństwo Unii Europejskiej. Jak widać dzisiaj, błędy, które zostały popełnione, brak refleksji i przedłożenie interesów biznesowych nad bezpieczeństwo doprowadziły nas do bardzo trudnej sytuacji. Widzimy, że Rosja przygotowywała się do wojny od dawna, a jednym z kluczowych elementów planu Putina było plecenie Europy siecią interesów i uzależnienie jej od rosyjskiego gazu i ropy. Niestety wiele państw całkowicie bezrefleksyjnie ułatwiało realizację tych planów Putina. Dzisiaj najważniejsze jest oczywiście przeciwdziałanie Rosji, zatrzymanie go. Musimy mieć świadomość, że wojna w Europie jest naszą wojną. To jest wojna o to, czy będzie bezpieczna Europa i czy będzie pokój w Europie. Ukraińcy bronią dzisiaj pokoju w Europie. Musimy mieć wszyscy świadomość tego tutaj również w Parlamencie Europejskim i mam nadzieję, że nie będzie chęci poluzowania sankcji czy odejścia od sankcji. Te sankcje muszą być wprowadzone i one muszą być bardzo skuteczne i zdecydowane. Chciałam też zadać konkretne pytania w związku z tym. Co z Gazpromem? Podstawowym błędem Europy było traktowanie Gazpromu jako równorzędnego partnera biznesowego, z którym można robić interesy jak z każdą inną firmą. Tymczasem Gazprom to dla Rosji po prostu broń równie ważna jak bomby i rakiety spadające na Ukrainę. Zatem mam pytanie, czy Komisja Europejska zamierza dokonać kontroli działalności Gazpromu na rynku europejskim? Czy Komisja dokona przeglądu infrastruktury przesyłowej i magazynów należących do Gazpromu w krajach Unii Europejskiej? I co najważniejsze, czy Komisja podejmie kroki, by ograniczyć znaczenie Gazpromu i innych rosyjskich firm na europejskim rynku paliw kopalnych? My musimy być w tej chwili, szanowni państwo, zjednoczeni i zdecydowani. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you so much. Dear Commissioner, back to you to answer to these questions and remarks of the coordinators. Thank you.
Dear coordinators, thank you very much for your comments and questions. And indeed, we are working on several work streams to be prepared better for next heating season, but there are also current developments. And I can assure you that we were prepared for any eventuality already beginning this year. Our contingency plans for possible disruption, full or partial disruption from East, were in place. So regional gas coordination risk groups have been working to create plans for regions. And if you have followed my own schedule, then we have reached out to our international partners. Well, I have been visiting Qatar, Azerbaijan, United States in last weeks, Norwegians, and we have hosted Norwegians and the Egyptians. Later today, I will have a call with Israeli minister. So the plan how to replace missing gas flows from pipeline gas flows when there will be retaliation is very high in our agenda. And well, we know that there are partners who can help us to diversify our pipe sources. For example, they could deliver 10 BCM annually more, and additionally, LNG supply with current infrastructure could deliver also significantly more, despite the fact that they have replaced the decreased pipeline flows via Ukraine and Belarus, Poland already since January. Ramping up LNG supplies also requires indeed putting in place the necessary infrastructure, the coordination, But compared to the previous gas crisis, we do have LNG terminals all across Europe. On storage, while gas supplies are sufficient until the end of this winter, even in case of full disruption of pipeline supplies from east, the real challenge, of course, will be the next winter. And in order to be well prepared, European Union needs to build up storage and reach 80 to 90% level of filling by this October. And this is a huge task, and we will propose next week regulatory and state aid measures to help member states to achieve this goal. On top of that, of course, we have to prioritize energy efficiency measures, and after an hour, I will join the event where International Energy Agency is presenting their study how we can replace some of the gas flows with actions already right now. And on hydrogen, the Commission supports the development of an integrated hydrogen infrastructure, also hydrogen storage facilities and port infrastructure. And we will help project promoters identify and prioritize the list of natural gas pipelines that can be refurbished and interconnected in the context of the revised 10E policy framework. And under the newly proposed rules in the hydrogen and gas market decarbonization package, we propose to remove barriers, such as by speeding up permitting procedures. And on state aid, you can expect that there will be a revision of state aid rules as emergency measures, and this exactly the details. They will be there next week when we publish our communication. But on prices, well, several member states already have adopted measures that were proposed in last toolbox. We will add some elements next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. We go to the second round. And as always, I will kindly ask colleagues to respect the time. We have several also catch the eye requests. I'm not sure if we can accommodate all, but let's start. And of course, the first intervention, President Buzek, EPP.
Dziękuję bardzo, panie przewodniczący. Dziękuję pani komisarz za obecność z nami, bo sytuacja jest przełomowa. Wszyscy się zgadzamy, jak widać na tej sali. Dotąd, jak mówiliśmy o bezpieczeństwie energetycznym, to chodziło nam o to, żeby było światło w szkołach i żeby było ciepło w szpitalach. A teraz mówimy o bezpieczeństwie i chodzi o to, żeby bomby nie spadały na szkoły, żeby dzieci nie ginęły w szpitalach. I wszyscy mówimy o tym samym. Nasz gaz napędza przemysł zbrojeniowy Putina. I musimy to radykalnie zmienić. Jak powiedział przed chwilą pan Christian Eller, mamy na stole właśnie rozporządzenie wodorowe gazowe i mamy również dyrektywę. Pani komisarz, to będzie wymagało daleko idących zmian. Ja sam jako sprawozdawca, ale sądzę także, że sprawozdawcy cienie, będziemy potrzebowali nadzwyczajnej pomocy ze strony Komisji Europejskiej, żeby podołać temu wyzwaniu. To jest poważne wyzwanie i nie będziemy przecież wprowadzać nowelizacji czegoś, co właśnie leży na stole. Także to jest pierwsza moja prośba. Zwracam się o to do Komisji Europejskiej, także w imieniu, jak sądzę, sprawozdawcy w cieni. I drugie, bardzo krótkie pytanie. W czasie wojny Ukraińcy odcięli swój system energetyczny od Białorusi i Rosji. Podołali temu. Jest pytanie, kiedy moglibyśmy zsynchronizować ich system energetyczny z resztą Unii Europejskiej. Dziękuję bardzo, pani komisarz.
Thank you, President. Next, Mrs. Toia, Vice Chair of the Committee, SND. Prego, Patrizia.
Sì, grazie Presidente. E ringrazio anche io la commissaria e molte cose sono già state dette e sono tutte condivisibili. Voglio fare solo due osservazioni. Una nell'immediato. Riprendo il tema che anche altri colleghi hanno sottolineato. In questo momento, soprattutto alla luce dell'impatto che questa situazione sta avendo relativamente alla dipendenza dal gas in alcuni paesi, noi dobbiamo, cara commissaria, come energia e come altri commissari che si occupano di questioni finanziarie, predisporre possibilità, un quadro largo e flessibile perché gli Stati membri possano fare tutto il necessario per le famiglie e per le imprese, perché altrimenti questa situazione rischia di strozzare la nostra economia ma anche di peggiorare la vita della società. Seconda osservazione di prospettiva, l'ha detto il collega Buzek, dobbiamo cambiare molte cose, dobbiamo avere uno sguardo diverso verso il futuro perché quello che è successo non è un passaggio qualunque. Allora, alla luce di questo, perché, signora commissaria, non puntiamo di più sulla costruzione di un'unione dell'energia? Ci sono studi, la Fondazione dell'OR, schemi anche di possibili trattati. Dobbiamo mettere in comune di più le nostre sorti. Non solo stoccaggi con livelli minimi nazionali, ma stoccaggi europei, con le interconnessioni necessarie e anche acquisti se necessario, se l'Unione deve essere più forte, più indipendente. E quindi la invito anche nella emergenza a fare passi significativi per costruire un quadro del futuro.
Grazie molto, signora Toia. Next, Vice Chair of the Committee also, and from Renew Group, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. I think it's clear to all of us that we in Europe can no longer rely upon Russia for imports of fossil fuels, and that we need to strengthen our European strategic autonomy. Now, we agreed to speed up the clean energy transition with the resolution we adopted in European Parliament this week. And I believe that it is crucial and urgent that the European Commission designs and presents a concrete plan with short, medium, and long-term measures up to 10 years maximum to address both the demand and the supply that Europe needs to become fully energy independent from Russian fossil fuels. We need to become energy independent from Russia within the next decade, all fossil fuels included. And in order to achieve this, we need higher efficiency targets, we need a plan for investments, we need to accelerate the deployment of renewables. I've made a proposal to my group, Renew Europe, and we are currently working on it. And Renew Europe wants to work and help the Commission to make such a plan a reality. And I would very much like your response to this, Commissioner. Thank you so much for all the hard work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Kittedal.
Thank you very much. Many colleagues has already spoken about our need for independence on energy in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But I would like to focus on how we got to this point in the first place. A few days ago, we got the news that Gazprom has funded specific environmental NGOs that opposes nuclear power, and that those NGOs in the next step has got an influence over governments in the European Union. And I think this is really alarming because the anti-nuclear sentiment is what has made us dependent on Russian gas in the first place. So I would like to ask the Commission what they're doing to backtrack the efforts of such environmental NGOs and their lobbyists on member states and on EU institutions, and how it has possibly affected our decision-making on energy policy.
Thank you so much. Madame Marie Toussaint, s'il vous plaît. Les verts. Juste appuyer speak button.
Oui, merci. Merci.
Oui, je vous en prie. Je vous en prie.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Madame la Commissaire, merci d'insister sur l'urgence des économies d'énergie, de l'efficacité énergétique, de l'interconnexion et des renouvelables face à notre dépendance aux énergies fossiles en général, aux fossiles russes évidemment en particulier. Nous sommes aujourd'hui en difficulté pour actionner tous les leviers nécessaires au maintien de la paix en Ukraine face à la Russie. Ça fait pourtant des années que l'Union promet de diversifier ses sources d'énergie, de tourner le dos aux fossiles, d'assurer la solidarité à l'intérieur de l'Union, mais continue à investir dans des infrastructures qui nous maintiennent sous dépendance des fossiles et de puissances extérieures dont nous les importons. En ce sens, il n'est pas trop tard pour réviser la liste des infrastructures PCI que vous nous proposez de financer et qui contient encore de nombreux projets gaziers qui ne font que déplacer le problème et remplacer malheureusement une dépendance par une autre. Seule la sobriété, l'efficacité et les renouvelables, déployés dans une véritable union solidaire de l'énergie, sont les garantes de la paix, à court comme à long terme. Donc Madame la Commissaire, pourquoi ne pas aujourd'hui et dans la PCI insister sur l'électrification, les interconnexions électriques et le développement des renouvelables? Et en termes de mesures d'urgence, pourriez-vous envisager d'utiliser les dispositifs d'interruptibilité afin de réduire la consommation des sites industriels?
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. Señor González Casares. Por favor.
Gracias, Presidenta, y gracias, Comisaria. Vivimos un momento terrible que debemos vivir unidos. Y bienvenidas las reacciones de la Comisión, aunque hayan sido en algunos casos tardías, y falta mucho. Se han agudizado debilidades que ya habíamos comentado durante meses. Le hemos dado a Putin la manija de los precios de la energía con los precios del gas. Eso nos ha llevado a esta situación donde que la invasión de Ucrania empezó hace una semana, pero la batalla de energía lleva meses en marcha. Yo creo que ahora es prioritario, es muy prioritario, desacoplar los altos precios del gas de los precios de la electricidad, porque empieza a ser insoportable para los consumidores. Y esto debemos transitarlo unidos, como dije al principio. Y la unidad política va a depender, en gran medida, de la estabilidad de la ciudadanía. Y la estabilidad de la ciudadanía también depende de lo que pagan de energía. Por lo tanto, debemos ser conscientes de eso. Si queremos transitar unidos, tenemos que tomar medidas ya en el corto plazo. Y también me alegra mucho haber oído, escuchado a otros colegas, la necesidad de interconexiones con la península ibérica. Ahora nos estamos dando cuenta de la importancia que estas tienen. Gracias.
Gracias. Invite now Mr. Rob Ross, Renew. ICR.
Dank u, voorzitter. Sinds de Russische aanval op Oekraïne zijn we in een andere wereld terechtgekomen. Met de energietransitie hebben we ons zelf afhankelijk gemaakt van Rusland als grote energieleverancier. Tegelijkertijd is Rusland een niet ontzienende agressor gebleken. Deze nieuwe werkelijkheid vraagt om een nieuwe kijk op heel veel beleidsplannen, ook op het gebied van energiebeleid. We willen minder afhankelijk worden van Rusland, maar de energiebehoefte blijft. Veel collega's zullen pleiten voor nog meer renewables. Ik zeg u, dat is geen oplossing voor de korte termijn. Ik pleit ervoor om gesloten of afgeschaalde kolen- en kerncentrales per omgaande te heropenen of op te schalen. Nood breekt immers wet. De economie zal hard worden getroffen door de oorlog in Oekraïne. Bedrijven en consumenten hebben vandaag betaalbare energie nodig. Mevrouw Simson, we moeten stoppen om geld dat we niet hebben uit te geven aan zaken die geen resultaat opleveren. Het heropenen van bestaande energiecentrales is het enige juiste besluit om deze crisis enigszins onder controle te krijgen. Ik dank u wel.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Virkunen, EPP. Yes, Mrs. Virkunen, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the Commissioner for being with us today. I think it's very important that the Commission is preparing these short-term actions now, but of course we have to also now think very carefully our long-term approach, because I think that Russian invasion in Ukraine, it has really underlined the fact that the EU has been too dependent on Russian energy, as we know, and it has made us too weak. We know that the goal of the Energy Union was that we should reduce our dependency of Russian energy and also promote our security of supply. But we can see that we haven't achieved the target. In fact, in 2020, we imported more than 60% of the energy to Europe, and it was the highest level for 30 years. So now I think it should be clear for everybody that we should invest much more to European energy sources and to all low-carbon energy, especially to of course, to renewables, but also to nuclear power. And I'm also asking from the Commissioner that is Commission going to promote nuclear power more than you have been doing, and do you have some new tools for that? Because it's sure that if we want to be more independent on the energy sector, we need all the low-carbon solutions.
Thank you so much. Monsieur Grudler, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci, Madame la Commissaire. Cette nouvelle crise russe nous montre à quel point il est indispensable que l'Union se détache de l'énergie fossile de M. Poutine. Il en va de notre sécurité et il en va également de notre intégrité énergétique. Si l'Europe fait un travail important pour tenter de limiter les impacts économiques de cette crise sur nos citoyens, il est indispensable de souligner la nécessité de sortir de toute forme de dépendance énergétique, que cette dépendance soit fossile ou renouvelable d'ailleurs. L'autonomie stratégique énergétique, c'est ce que nous devons défendre et chercher pour l'Europe. Sortons du fossile à des fins écologiques, mais aussi à des fins stratégiques. Les renouvelables produits localement font partie de la solution. Nous avons aussi le devoir d'accélérer le processus interne européen pour traduire nos ambitions en actions concrètes et rapidement. Cette accélération du calendrier, j'en fais vœu aussi pour la révision de la directive sur les énergies renouvelables. Il y a vraiment urgence à agir. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Mrs. Penkova, SND.
Thank you, and thank you, President. Thank you, Commissioner Simpson, for being here with us. So I think we've all agreed that we've seen that the security of supply should be strengthened, and we should be speaking about more integration in our energy system in Europe. We also need the balance between the renewable resources and the base load powers of energy. And we need to act fast. So the crisis we have now is not at the expense of the Green Deal. So we need to think of the base load power options, which could be the solution to the current crisis. And some of my colleagues that spoke before already mentioned that, but nuclear energy at this moment should be considered as one of the solutions because it has the lowest carbon footprint and it is already considered as a green solution by the European Commission. So my question here is, do you have any considerations on the Complementary Taxonomy Delegated Act that needs to be voted quite soon in terms of, are you planning any revisions of that? And also last, do you consider to ensure any permissions for new nuclear projects, fast-track permissions, which of course would not be at the expense of the safety requirements, which should be fully met? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Pieper, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Dear Kadri Simson, an issue that does not concern your direct competence, but which is of great importance for the energy transition. You know that the Recovery Corona Fund is worth 750 billion, 30% of which is booked for climate protection. And we all know that the energy transition will be faster, that the expansion of renewables will be much faster if we use the synergies of the internal market. This means joint hydrogen and green electricity projects. This means invest in cross-border infrastructure, energy networks and pipelines. But we hear that the member states are not willing to invest in cross-border projects, not €1. I think that is a missed opportunity, if not a scandal, with regard to the situation of war. As Energy Commissioner, do you have any influence here? Do you have a lever to get the member states to cooperate more with the recovery money? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pieper. Mr. Bloss, Greens.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner. These are very hard times. Putin is waging a war against the Ukraine, but also against Europe, against democracy, against human rights. And the European Union is being blackmailed by Putin's grip on coal, oil, and gas. We need a war-like economy, but instead of weapons, we deliver Putin's biggest fear: solar rooftops, wind energy, heat pumps, and energy-independent Europe. Currently, we send 700 million euros a day to Putin and fund his war. This needs to end. And finding new autocratic suppliers of oil, gas, and coal will not solve the problem. It will come at the cost of higher oil and gas prices, which affects our citizens negatively and Putin's budget positively. The only way to hurt Putin and to defend our freedom, our democracy, our human rights is to move away from gas, coal and oil with an emergency plan. We need you, Commissioner Simpson, to present this emergency plan now.
Thank you, Mr. Bloss. Mrs. Weiss, EPP.
Thank you so much, Chair. And thank you, Kadri Simson, for being with us today, this week, and also for focusing on what immediately can be done. I echo many of the suggestions and questions and remarks already put forward by especially my own group, but also other colleagues. I have an additional suggestion or ask, because we are also dealing with, of course, the Fit for 55 package while having a war in Europe. We are also dealing with the rising of energy prices and the fear of energy poverty. Now, in the package of Fit for 55, there is many impact assessments. I wonder whether it is not needed for the upcoming trilogues, not to slow down the work with the Fit for 55, not at all, but is the Commission considering to have made a dusting off or a recasting of the impact assessments done in order for us to have the Fit for 55 still to reach the goals, but also to echo and reflect on the situation in Ukraine on terms of that. So I very much ask for that.
Thank you so much. Mr. Zorinho, please.
Obrigado, Sr. Presidente, Sr. Comissário. Num mundo que é cada vez mais estruturado pelo binómio informação-energia, as políticas energéticas são determinantes. Nós demos uma resposta a esta crise fortemente apoiada pelas opiniões públicas, mas esta resposta tem efeitos colaterais na energia que serão muito fortes e para os quais nós não estamos preparados. E por isso, Sra. Comissária, é fundamental acionar todos os mecanismos para evitar, em primeiro lugar, as falhas de abastecimento, mas não menos importante, para conter aumentos exponenciais de preços que para as pessoas dos setores económicos mais vulneráveis são absolutamente difíceis de incorporar, e designadamente desligando o preço do mercado do preço do gás. É preciso também apostar ainda mais nas energias renováveis, nas tecnologias para o seu transporte e armazenamento, para garantir segurança de abastecimento e sustentabilidade ambiental. Sra. Comissária, a diversificação do abastecimento é estratégica e por isso queria deixar-lhe uma pergunta muito direta. O que fará de imediato, tendo até em conta que estamos perante a presidência francesa do Conselho da União Europeia, para que a Península Ibérica deixe de ser uma ilha energética, para que seja quebrado o bloqueio das interconexões com França e para que a União Europeia se possa abastecer também a partir do Sudoeste. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Mrs. Francesca Donato.
Sì, grazie. Allora, io pongo delle domande visto che dall'atteggiamento politico si capisce che viene esclusa sin da oggi qualsiasi possibile soluzione diplomatica che consenta di riprendere nel medio periodo i rapporti con la Russia. Quali sono i tempi che la Commissione prevede necessari per raggiungere l'obiettivo di eliminare la dipendenza energetica dalla Russia? E poi chiedo perché si è deciso di non rivedere le norme sugli aiuti di Stato, perché sarebbero fondamentali per consentire la sopravvivenza di migliaia di imprese, e mi chiedo quali siano le misure alternative che la Commissione ha in mente. Per esempio, uno dei temi anche da affrontare dovrebbe essere quello sulla energia prodotta dai rifiuti. La Commissione ha intenzione di rivedere le norme che fino adesso hanno escluso la possibilità di finanziare impianti del genere? E infine vorrei chiedere se è prevista la produzione di una stima precisa sull'impatto economico delle sanzioni adottate dalla posizione dell'Unione Europea nei confronti della Russia sulle famiglie e sulle imprese dei Paesi membri.
Grazie molto. Mrs. Gamon, Claudia Gamon, Renew.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your presentation. I welcome and share many points that you've made. I do believe that the safest way out of the dependency is to instantly increase our renewables capacities. and end putting money into fossil fuels. But assuming that we will have an accelerated increase of the renewable shares in Europe, what is the plan of the Commission to also increase the energy storage capacities, which would be urgently needed to support the energy transition? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Gamon. Mrs. Stegrud, ECR.
Mrs. Stegrud, could you please press the speak button?
Thank you, Chair.
Perfect, please.
Is it working?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will start with quoting Ursula von der Leyen. Without SWIFT, the banks concerned will hardly be able to carry out financial transactions on the world markets anymore. This means we're also largely blocking Russian exports and imports. However, despite of this tough rhetoric, in reality, some Russian institutions, such as Gazprom Bank, will remain in the SWIFT network. Banks that are the most important for the payment of energy deliveries and therefore also for Putin and his friends. In effect, we now see how the increase of renewables, which requires more gas, and closing of nuclear power plants, mainly in Germany, has made EU extremely dependent on Russia, exactly what Moscow has been striving for. I have on several occasions warned for this naive and unrealistic plan for the transition. I've been warning for dependence on both Russia and China. And now we see how our dependence hinders us from using one of the most powerful tools to stop an invasion of a European country. Isn't it about time that we pause the transition and make some serious consequence analysis, considering all aspects, including geopolitical ones?
Thank you, Mrs. Stegrud. Invite now Mrs. Maidel, EPP.
Good afternoon, colleagues, dear Commissioner. First of all, I join my colleagues that are asking for urgent plans and measures to increase the energy independence from Russia and in the same time secure supplies and storage as soon as possible. But I would like to focus on two important aspects that have not been covered in depth until now. The first one is related to the problem with LNG, and not only when it comes to terminals and transport, but also when it comes to the difficult increase in supplies. So I want to know, has the Commission considered a common European procurement for LNG? I think in this way we could allow producers to increase their production in capacity, knowing that they have some sort of a secure demand. My second question is regarding whether you have made any analysis on the demand in Europe in case of an energy cut off from Russia. Do you foresee any coordination with governments for those emergency plans? And I would like to know basically more on that. And lastly, on cybersecurity, have there been any further enhancement of the cybersecurity on power plants, on transmission and trading infrastructure? I think it's very important to focus on that part as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva. Mrs. Kumpula-Natri, SND.
Thank you, Chair. I will skip my part on the cybersecurity as it was taken in the previous note very carefully. I want to support Commission and Commissioner. It is very crucial that we are united and work together. And even on the energy sector, I think this committee needs to have the mood of the urgency and an emergency, as we know that it is not our policies now, it's a policy of Russia, whether they will cut even more the production and transmission of energy to us. But in between now and until the October, there is one summer in between. And I think that every single euro, we need to look carefully how we also act in the short run. Is it cheaper actually to put on the solar on the roof than invent a subsidy to the fossil? Is it cheaper actually to isolate the homes, houses, buildings, and even teach people to and companies to maximize their energy efficiency and dependency. So I think Fit for 55, we have urgency to put it into place and not talk so much on the longer term. So I think in the crisis, ideologies needs to be put aside, and good example was the Green German minister who was even readiness to think about the nuclear existing one, not to build new dependencies. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Dalunde, please.
Tack så mycket, herr ordförande, och tack till kommissionären för möjligheten till diskussioner idag. EU måste göra allt vi kan för att stötta Ukraina i detta svåra läge, men sanningen är att vi fortfarande inte gör allt som vi skulle kunna göra. Så länge vi är beroende av Ryssland för vår energiförsörjning så fortsätter vi att finansiera den ryska krigsapparaten, och det blir svårare att ha en fullt oberoende utrikespolitik och ha effektiva sanktioner mot Ryssland. Vi har pratat mycket om gas här idag och jag instämmer med mina kollegor, men jag fokuserar nu på kärnkraften. För oavsett hur kriget utvecklar sig de närmsta veckorna och månaderna så är vår relation till Ryssland förändrad för mycket lång tid framöver. Det talas nu i vissa medlemsländer om att bygga ny kärnkraft, men Ryssland och Kina investerar i nästan alla nu pågående kärnkraftprojekt världen över. Detta får inte bli fallet i EUs medlemsländer. Vi får inte skapa ännu ett tekniskt energiberoende av Ryssland. Ett sådant beroende hade gjort medlemsländer känsliga för sabotage, utpressning och röjande av känslig information. Tack så mycket.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Carvalho, EPP.
Ms. Carvalho, could you please press the speak button?
Good, please.
Bom dia, caro Presidente, cara Comissária. Tão cedo não voltaremos a confiar na Rússia e não fazemos negócios e muito menos mantemos relações de dependência com aqueles em que não confiamos. A independência energética da União Europeia já era urgente antes da invasão da Ucrânia e agora tornou-se uma prioridade absoluta. Temos de investir de forma decisiva no desenvolvimento de energias mais limpas, acessíveis para os nossos consumidores e empresas. Mas temos também de considerar o papel das energias de transição, em especial o gás. Por isso, as cadeias de abastecimento, as interligações, são muito importantes. E queria deixar aqui um apelo à Comissão, para que seja novamente considerado nos projetos de interesse comum a interligação dos Pirineus. Este projeto permitiria diversificar a origem do gás natural importado para a Europa, tirando partido do terminal de gás liquefeito que existe em Portugal e Espanha. E terá igualmente um interesse estratégico no futuro, tendo em vista o transporte de hidrogênio. Muito obrigada.
Thank you, Mr. Horsik. Renew.
Thank you very much, Christian. And dear Commissioner, I'm sure you know that the cheapest energy, cheaper than gas, cheaper than nuclear, cheaper than anything, is the one that we don't need. The energy efficiency first, something which must be enforced above all. And just a fresh estimate out of the Netherlands says that only with what could be done this summer with energy efficiency and a certain number of heat pumps, they can go down on the amount of Russian gas the Netherlands needs to import, somewhere between 60 and 95%. Nuclear power plants take 20 years to build, and two nights ago, a special exceptional plane had to arrive from Russia to Slovakia to deliver us fuel. This is not going to heat, the new power plants are not going to heat the homes this winter. I'm sorry, they're not. Maybe in 20 years, but that's a question at all. So what we need is, and that's my question to you is, can we check all the recovery plans? Can we check all the partnership agreements? How much we are putting into, for example, the subsidies for new gas boilers, replacing the local use of biomass? Because my country is doing it, a couple of tens of millions, actually increasing our dependency on imported gas. What we need is energy efficiency and sustainable, green, and actually freedom energy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Balz, SND.
Dzień dobry, panie przewodniczący. Pani komisarz, w obliczu agresji Rosji na Ukrainę nie pytam czy, ale kiedy Unia Europejska będzie dokonywać zgodnie z propozycją, którą od wielu lat proponował i ponawiał premier Jerzy Buzek, wspólnych zakupów surowców energetycznych dla wszystkich członków Unii Europejskiej. Tak jak to robiliśmy w przypadku szczepionek przeciw COVID-19. Drugie pytanie. Widzimy spadki cen uprawnień do emisji CO2. Czy Komisja nie powinna sprawdzić, czy nie jest to efekt wycofywania kapitału oligarchów rosyjskich z funduszów, które spekulowały cenami uprawnień, próbując osłabić gospodarkę Unii Europejskiej? Rosja poprzez swoich miliarderów i ich firmy mogła z nami prowadzić wojnę hybrydową, której elementem było obniżenie zapasów gazu w zbiornikach w Niemczech i Austrii, obniżenie dostaw gazu na rynki europejskie oraz grę na zwyżki cen uprawnień do emisji CO2. Czy nie jest potrzebne śledztwo w tej sprawie? Zgadzam się również z kolegą Danem Nika. Komisja nie słuchała i nie podjęła działań chroniących rynek energetyczny przed zewnętrznymi wrogimi działaniami. Polska od wielu lat ostrzegała o zagrożeniach ze strony Rosji. Polska przyjęła również regulacje, które nakazują dostawcom gazu napełnienie zbiorników gazu przed sezonem grzewczym, a wiele krajów sprzedało własne magazyny gazu firmom z mafijnego i terrorystycznego kraju. Jak Komisja chce napełnić zbiorniki gazu należące do Gazpromu i innych rosyjskich firm? Zgadzam się również z panią premier Beatą Szydło w sprawie sankcji na Rosję. Sankcje mogą być zdjęte dopiero wtedy, kiedy Rosja zapłaci wszystkie reparacje wojenne dla Ukrainy za wszystkie zniszczenia i krzywdy dokonane przez wojska rosyjskie na Ukrainie.
Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, thank you for being concise. We still have some time and few catch the eye requests. I will try to make it possible, but please less than 1 minute the catch the eye requests. I start with Mrs. Niebler.
Vielen Dank, Herr Vorsitzender. Vielen Dank, Frau Kommissarin, für die Gelegenheit zum Austausch. Ich habe 2 konkrete Fragen. Erstens, wir haben ja viel über die Abhängigkeit vom russischen Gas gesprochen. Wir sind aber nicht nur vom Gas abhängig. Es gibt ja auch eine Vielzahl von Lieferungen russischen Öls und russischer Kohle. Und da würde mich auch nochmal die Zahlen interessieren. Also wie viel wird denn aus Russland in die Europäische Union an Öl und vor allen Dingen auch an Kohle importiert? Also das wäre meine eine Frage. Zweite Frage, der deutsche Wirtschaftsminister ist rausgegangen und hat gesagt, Versorgungssicherheit geht vor Klimaschutz. Frage an Sie, teilen Sie diese Auffassung und was heißt das auch konkret mit Blick auf Priorisierungen im Rahmen von Fit for 55? Zum Dezemberpaket hatten Sie ja schon Ausführungen genommen. Und dritte Anmerkung, habe ich noch 10 Sekunden. Ich teile das, was viele Kollegen gesagt haben. Erstens, eigene Ressourcen in der Europäischen Union ausbauen, wo wir es können. Vor allen Dingen Erneuerbare, aber auch Low Carbon. Zweitens, Energiebinnenmarkt weiterentwickeln, vervollständigen. Ich glaube, das ist zentral. Und drittens, strategische Reserven aufbauen. Auch da bin ich voll bei den Kollegen, die das schon angesprochen hatten. Danke.
Thank you, Mrs. Niebler. Mr. Rope.
Ačiū gerbiamas pirmininkė. Pritariu daugumai šnekėjusių ir nesikartosiu. Noriu tik tai pasakyti 2 pasiūlymus. Pirmas, išnaudokim jau dabar turimus LNG terminalus. Jie apkrauti 15–20%. Ir kuo greičiau atsisakykim rusiškų dujų. Baikim maitinti Putiną. Mes kasdieną po milijardą eurų pervedam už dujas. Tai yra karo rėmimas. Turim kuo greičiau šitą užbaigti, vis tiek Putinas mus atjungs. Antras dalykas, siūlau kuo greičiau sukurti specialų planą, kaip COVID planą ir sparčiai pradėti plėsti saulės kolektorių gamybą. Jų šiandien labai trūksta Europoje. Ir kuo greičiau remti vartotojus, kad jie juos naudotų. Ir tokiu būdu mes šiemet padarysim didžiulį proveržį. Ačiū.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Paulus, please.
Thank you very much, Kadri, for being with us today. I try to be concise. First question, is the Commission considering an emergency instrument to speed up the spread of new renewables and also of efficiency? Every percentage of efficiency gains will save us 2.6% of gas imports. Second remark, LNG terminals, whether we need them or not, they will not increase the available gas on the world market. So how is the Commission assessing this? How fast could the rest of the world supply what Russia is now delivering? Third, on nuclear, we are talking about security of supply, right? 20% of the uranium that is used in the European Union is imported from Russia. 40% is imported from Kazakhstan. So would you please explain me how a switch to nuclear would actually increase security of supply? And fourth, and maybe most important question, one of the keys in this is state aid. And we have now heard that, of course, it's not your DG, that DG Competition is slowing down the acceptance of state aid to renewables. What is the Commission going to do about it?
Thank you so much. Mrs. Spiraki, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for finding the time to be with us. I will be very brief, starting with the possibility to proceed with changes at the state aid guidelines that they are in the pipeline in order to accelerate the deployments of renewable, and especially the deployments of renewable in cross-border projects that colleague Pieper has already mentioned. Second, you have already mentioned the part of the toolbox of the Commission considering the issue of the joint procurement. My question is, joint procurement is translated into joint storage? And third, is the Commission ready to provide the specific financial facility in order to support the most vulnerable parts of our societies? Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Spiraki. Mr. Ilčić, please. Short.
Thank you. Nobody has mentioned Nord Stream 1. Is it still working? Do we want effective sanctions against Russia? So we all know that the strongest impact of Russia to the European Union is on the field of energy. So this is the most important committee, and we heard a lot of concrete questions and not a lot of concrete answers from commissioners. So more words and less numbers, and we need more numbers, more concrete plans. So I support fully what Mr. Peterson and other colleagues said, that we need concrete plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ilčić. Last but not least, Mrs. Wisner.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for being with us today and taking the time. Colleagues, we're still funding the war of Putin. We need to stop the imports of Russian energy as soon as possible. But my question is on transparency, because there's still a lack of transparency on the European gas market. I wonder if the Commission will propose measures and regulations in order to increase the transparency towards the consumers on the origin of the gas. And I would like to highlight the question raised by Martina on the impact assessment of the climate package. Could you also please provide some answers on that? Thanks.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Madam Commissioner, I know that you heard many questions, many comments, but the situation is very difficult and the interest is very high. So now back to you. You can use the whole remaining minutes before 12 o'clock, because I know you go to an important meeting. And once again, thank you for being with us today. Please, the microphone is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your questions and remarks today. And I think that this exchange is very important at this very moment. I would especially want to thank and express my gratitude to Professor Buzek, because you were the first one who set the scene, and of course our security of supply situation and the impact to our prices is very important. But I think that at this very moment, your question, how we can support Ukraine and what will we do with their synchronization plan, is also extremely relevant, because they are in the situation where we could help them to keep their lights on by synchronizing their electricity grid. As I was mentioning, there is a very strong political support for their synchronization plan, but it is a technical, complex process, and it was planned to be finalized next year. So let me be clear, the emergency synchronization is at the hands of NSOE, our system operators. They do their best to be prepared in the next weeks, so that there will be minimum risks to our own system operators who are responsible for avoiding blackouts here in Europe, who are responsible to tackle the cyber risks. And they have put in place a special dedicated task force that will work to make it happen. Then, from our side, well, every day we are working on the plan how to support Ukraine, emergencies to support gas, reverse flow to Ukraine, support of generators and coal, for example. I was mentioning in my introductory remarks that we put in place the coordination group. And on top of that, our nuclear regulator is preparing a contingency plan that will address the possible threat when Russian military will attack Ukrainian nuclear power plants. As you know, they already use Chernobyl site as shelter for their heavy weaponry. You asked me, do we have concrete plans in place? Yes, we do. Well, starting already a couple of months ago, our gas coordination groups, they prepared contingency plans, regional preparedness plans for partial or full disruption. So this work is ongoing. It didn't start on 24th of February. We were prepared. Well, right now the Commission is working on second set of toolbox. Well, we call it Plan for a Joint European Action for More Affordable, Secure and Sustainable Energy. But basically, this is a proposal where part of our plan covers also emergency measures, and we will address also the situation that our consumers have to face paying their electricity bills. And of course, we are coordinating the alternative flows that could replace and already replacing the decreased pipeline gas flows from east, because not all of our member states do have LNG terminals, but again, compared to previous gas crises, we are much better prepared than a decade ago. Well, from here, I am going to present this study that the IEA is proposing what we can do right now to decrease our dependency on Russian gas. And I would like to conclude by underlying that Russia's behavior has proven that we need to step up all the efforts to reduce the dependency on Russian energy supplies. So nobody can deny us access to sun and wind, and therefore the development of renewables is the way forward. Our energy sovereignty and competitiveness can only be preserved through the Green Deal, boosting renewables and energy efficiency as fast as technically possible. So we need to move away from 40% of Russian gas imports and swiftly move towards 40% of renewables in our energy mix. And European Parliament, and especially your committee, ITRE, you have a crucial role on this, and the acceleration of the adoption of the entire Fit for 55 package to deliver on our ambition is very much needed. And I know that you will discuss the draft reports on energy efficiency and renewable energy directive this afternoon. And I want to thank the rapporteurs and everyone working on these important files. So let me assure that I and my services stand ready for any support you would need from the Commission, and we will address the biggest bottleneck, the permitting procedures that we have to shorten. So beyond the short term, we need address urgently medium-term needs. We know that we will reach the end of this winter with an exceptionally low level of gas storage. So it is utmost priority that we start already now to plan how to ensure a sufficient level of gas storage ahead of the next heating season. And this will be also addressed in the next week's communication. And Angelika Niebler raised the question that this is not only our dependency on Russian gas, it is also oil products and coal. And yes, we are prepared if there will be disruption of oil deliveries. You know that across Europe, robust structure of strategic oil reserves is in place. This week, United States has taken the initiative to coordinate the IEA collective action for partial release of the emergency oil stocks. So 2 days ago, over 40 member countries of IEA, all of them supported and agreed, and it was also supported by the European Commission, to collectively release an initial 60 million barrels of oil from strategic petroleum reserves. And I think that this decision reflects a common commitment to address significant market and supply disruptions related to the Russia's war against Ukraine. Because at IEA, we do have member states from Asia, Japan, Korea, our partners from America, United States, Canada, also Mexico, and then, well, international partners like New Zealand and Australia, they all agreed to do that. So this is a strong message of unity that we see right now. We are working day and night to be prepared to help our member states to tackle possible disruptions, and also to address the stress that our industry and our retail consumers have to face because of this current volatility. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next week at plenary in Strasbourg when we will discuss energy prices.
Thank you so much, dear Commissioner. We definitely see each other next week in Strasbourg. An important oral question on the increase the prices of energy. I know that your team is working hard to connect Ukrainian grid to the European continental grid. Maybe you look also a little bit to the Republic of Moldova in this context, that you're working to increase the gas storage. On the medium term, of course, LNG, renewables, a lot of focus on renewables, and also nuclear for those countries which accepts this form of energy could be developed. But anyway, we'll continue the dialogue, we'll continue to monitor the situation, we'll support your good initiatives, and of course, we'll continue working together on the very important legislation that we are now debating and adopting in ITRE committee. And two very important pieces of legislation, Renewable Energy Directive and Energy Efficiency Directive, will be discussed this afternoon, starting with 1:45 p.m. But colleagues, please remember that it will not be the same room. We'll go to C050. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Good luck to all of you. Thank you to ITRE Secretariat. Thank you to interpreters. Thank you to the technical services.